What's up, humans, and welcome to a new Psicoactivo. Happy Tuesday, everybody. Okay, today's earlier video was a wonderful interview with former APRO researcher Alan Levine. We had a wonderful conversation. I hope you guys can check it out. I also had two other conversations in different channels. I had a conversation with Recluse on X, who has a podcast called The Farm Podcast, Mac 2. We actually spoke about Dr. Jacobo Greenberg at length, about his work, his disappearance, some of the aspects of why some of the most important people in ufology are ignoring his case. And also, I had a wonderful conversation also with my good friend Sander Jones from the Dreamland Motel. We spoke for about an hour. Aside from that, which I will leave links in the description for everything, there is this headline that just came up, and I just want to first preface this by telling you guys that the name of the show is Psicoactivo. And the reason that I named the show like this is because initially, what I wanted to talk about was all the learning experiences I had during a decade long psychedelic trip with different types of substances. One of the substances that I did try, but I didn't have any effects, was DMT. Most of my experiences were with both psilocybin and LSD. And I learned a lot from myself. I learned a lot of the outlook that I have of life. I am really sad by the enormous stigma that exists in psychedelics. When I was with Fepo at the podcast Paranormal, I explained and I was very open about my psychedelic experiences. And many of the comments below were from people who judge me and who still have that stigma. They said that I'm not credible because my experiences are based on that. Not all of my experiences are based on that, not even close. But I do have to be honest and tell you guys that most of my learning experiences were from psychedelics, and they did have a positive impact in my life. And I need you guys to understand that back in the 60s, when all psychedelics were prohibited by governments, that happened because people were starting to rebel against governments, because psychedelics have this effect in people where they force you to reevaluate whatever is happening in the world and in life. And they make you a more logical and empathetic type of person. That's what psychedelics do. And there is a major mistake that governments made when they created these laws to prevent substances, but they lumped them all in the same bucket. And I think that was a huge and grave mistake, because you cannot compare a substance like LSD to a substance like heroin, for example, or you cannot compare a substance like psilocybin with cocaine. It's just not smart to do that because they're not the same. They don't cause the same effects. So when it comes to DMT, I've always been a little more afraid of that one, because although under the influence of the others that I did try, I did have communications, I would say, with myself. DMT is different in the sense that there's scientific studies going on, and a lot of people who have been studying this scientifically claim that they have contact with entities. And specifically, we're going to talk about one of these scientists who are conducting these experiments and have made some interesting breakthroughs. I'm talking about Dr. Andrew Gallimore, who just came out on the Daily Mail. They had an interview with him, and he posted this headline. And I think it's very interesting. This one was written by Rob Walk from the Daily Mail. And the headline goes, "Aliens are already here. They are intelligent, but have a dark side and operate on us," as in perform surgeries on us. And just reading that headline, it's really intriguing. And I know that there's a lot of people that are going to reject whatever information Dr. Gallimore is putting out because of this stigma that I tell you about. But I think that we are in a stage of society where a lot of this stigma needs to start receding. And I think it has been. Within the military in the US, the stigma has receded on UFOs. But one of the harder to recede is the stigma against substances, because whether you like it or not, substance abuse is a thing. And you can be addicted to anything, not just substances. And it is just as harmful to be addicted to food as it is to a substance or other things, because it is an addiction. You form an addiction, you lose sense of reality, you lose sense of life regardless of what you're addicted to, and you make that your sole priority. You forget about other responsibilities, you forget about living your life. And I think that we need to learn how to make this distinction, because psychedelics are, in my opinion, one of the most useful tools for civilizational evolution, in my opinion. And I think Dr. Gallimore agrees with me in this sense. And pretty much everybody who's also explored with psychedelic substances agrees with me. However, talking about entities and these elves and mantid beings that have been reported by DMT users for a while now, that's where it gets really interesting. And to me, just to me, it gets scary. And that's the reason why I don't think I will be doing DMT anytime soon. I know that people will criticize me for that, probably, but it's just I had a near death experience with another substance, and it was a fear death experience. So that fear is still very latent in me. And I just don't want to be exposed to that fear anymore. And I feel that if I do these hard substances again, I could be exposed to that again. And I just don't want to. I want to stay focused on what I'm doing right now. And I don't want either distractions or more fear to add to that. I think it's already established that if you take this topic seriously, it gets really dark and it gets really serious. And what Dr. Gallimore is mentioning here is worth noting, but it is scary. I'm not going to tell you it's not. So I'm just going to play a little clip in the background of Dr. Gallimore speaking to Terence McKenna's brother, Dennis McKenna. They had an interview and they spoke for a while. But while that clip plays, I am going to read to you parts of this article from the Daily Mail so you guys can see what he said. Okay? So, this is what the article says. I'm just going to read you the most important parts of it. It says, and I quote, "The Insectoid beings have a dark side, seeming to perform psychic surgery, quote unquote, on some DMT users," end quote. Then another quote says, and I quote, "Aliens are already here. They are intelligent, but have a dark side and operate on us," end quote. And then it says, Dr. Andrew Gallimore, who has a PhD in biological chemistry and has studied computational neuroscience, said he encountered these beings firsthand after being transported to a hyperdimensional world teeming with intelligent life forms. Unlike earthly creatures, these beings, ranging from insectoids to godlike figures, seem to exist in a space that defies our three dimensional understanding. Gallimore's encounters with these alien intelligences have convinced him that they are not mere drug hallucinations, but may represent a genuine presence accessible through DMT. The consistency of these visions among DMT users, where no human or animal forms appear, has raised profound questions about whether these aliens are already here, embedded in an unseen dimension. Gallimore added that DMT may act as a key, unlocking this hidden world where these advanced intelligences await, potentially holding answers to their purpose on Earth. Probably the most famous of all these multitudinous giggling machine elf type beings, and these very small creatures that operate in great numbers and are generally very lively, cheeky, jovial, mischievous, Gallimore revealed. And then Gallimore also added, they sing impossible objects into existence. They speak in some kind of visible language. Meanwhile, the insectoid beings have a dark side, seeming to perform quote unquote psychic surgery on some DMT users. Others creatures seem more like gods, according to the scientist. And then the final quote goes like, it's impossible to put into words, but beings that seem to be constructed from more than three dimensions that are quite obviously inordinately more complex than any other kind of intelligent being that you are ever going to encounter in this universe, Gallimore described. So these are the most interesting parts of this article. I'm going to leave it in the description. But I recently did a video where Jimmy from UAP Files podcast had this doctor, Astrid Stuckelberger, where she talks about alleged portals at CERN and all that. And I just wonder if this and that could be connected in any way. I don't know, but it's an interesting correlation that I think could be worth exploring, in my opinion. Another clip that I am going to use is going to be from the Aubrey Marcus YouTube channel. This one was posted by my friend Tom Thompson, who talks about the bottom line of the research that Andrew Gallimore has encountered and that he talks about. So here it is. This is what Tom describes on his X post. He says, after 20 years of research, Dr. Andrew Gallimore has reached an undeniable conclusion about DMT. Number one is the standard neuroscience model can't explain it. And then entities aren't just projections of the unconscious. And then we may be interacting with a real independent intelligence. And then he says, Gallimore says, I wouldn't call it a spirit of or a god or an alien or anything like that. I don't know the nature of it, but I certainly strongly lean in the direction now that we are dealing with an intelligence that we need to take seriously. And this is the clip.
Before I say that, I will just say that actually, although Carl said I'm on the fence, I actually now lean heavily more in your direction, Aubrey, in that from the 2 decades that I've been studying DMT and attempting using kind of the standard paradigm of neuroscience to explain and drawing in other people's explanations for the DMT state and for the entities, Jungian archetypes bubbling up from the collective unconscious and all this kind of stuff. I've tried and failed to make sense of DMT using that. So now what's left for me is personally the undeniable conclusion that the only explanation that makes sense is that we are in fact dealing with some kind of, I call it an intelligent agent. I wouldn't call it a spirit or a god or an alien or anything like that. I don't know the nature of it, but I certainly strongly lean in the direction now that we are dealing with an intelligence that we need to take seriously.
Dr. Gallimore wrote a book, which its foreword is written by none other than Graham Hancock. This is the book right here. It's called Death by Astonishment, Confronting the Mystery of the World's Strangest Drug by Andrew R. Gallimore, foreword by Graham Hancock. And Hancock had him on his show too. Hancock is a major proponent of DMT use. And I also saw a video from Third Eye Drops, which consisted of many interviews of DMT users who talk about these experiences. And the majority of them believe that these entities are in fact real. And something that had been happening at London College for a while is that they had been sort of mapping a place that DMT users go to when they consume the substance. And these people describe in different circumstances, in different times, this place that has many similarities between the different descriptions from these users. and they are mapping effectively a place through these accounts. And the evidence just keeps piling up that there is something to these experiences that DMT users have with these entities. And I just want to ask you guys, what do you think about it? Let me know in the comments, and let me know what you think about the article once you read it. I'm going to leave it in the description. That headline is pretty hardcore, if you ask me. Aliens are already here. They are intelligent, but have a dark side. No parade on us. And I know that this is the Daily Mail. Probably the headline probably was chosen by the editor. I would have changed it for a little bit. Entities, I would say, instead of aliens, because we don't know what they are. We know that there's a lot of people that are describing them and they're talking about them. They communicate with them allegedly, but we don't know if they're aliens or not. We don't know what they are. So, what do you think they are? These elves, these mantid beings? Let me know in the comments, and let me know what you think about Dr. Gallimore's overall work. I am dying to know what you guys think about this. Please don't judge. If you don't like the topic about psychedelics, just don't watch the video. There's no need for toxic comments in the comment section. If you have the stigma that I told you about, just abstain from commenting. But if you don't, and if you're open-minded, please comment. Let me know what you think. Thank you. If you like the content you see, I'm going to ask you to like, share, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell icon. That's all you need to do in order to help us. And it is what helps us the most. So thank you. But if you want to support us in any other way, there's a few links down there you can choose from. You can also become a member on YouTube, or you can support us through KGRA. The good news is that the KGRA interviews are now on every podcast platform. So you can go check those out. Thank you, KGRA, for facilitating that. That's it for me today on this video, but I'll see you guys in the next one. Remember, stay curious and inquisitive like Dr. Andrew Gallimore. Always. Bye.